this is where the rubber meets the road, some specific strategies for developing grammar awareness. Peer editing, number one, is where you're teaching students how to edit each other's work. And you have to tell your students, all writers need editors, no matter who you're at, who you are, where you're at. Don't feel bad if you make mistakes. All writers need people to look at their work. And you'll have to provide the structure and instruction for making peer editing happen. And I'll show you how. One way is to simply give an editing checklist. Student hands his or her paper to another student. They have that checklist. They can say yes or no. It helps them to know what to look for, right? As well, this same checklist could be handed to a pair or a group of students to edit one piece at a time. Now, during a writing workshop, you might have an editing table. When students are finished with their revising, then they're ready to go to the editing stage. And maybe you have a parent and 2 or 3 students editing papers. So a child brings his paper or her paper back, and at the peer editing table, they look for grammar, spelling, punctuation. Maybe a small group of students or expert students, older writing buddies. This is a safe way to remediate some older students to help them actually attend to punctuation and spelling with younger students. And when a writer finishes the revising, again, then they're ready to go to the editing stage and not before that. You could, using your creativity, have several tables looking for only one element. Maybe this is the capital letter table, the period table, the complete sentence table. Or you could set it up as stations, where you have students take their paper to every station, and one looks just for capital letters, one for periods, one, etc. Or you could have each station with several pieces of writing looking for just one element. You're limited only by your imagination. All right? Keep it simple. Use students' writing as far as the grammar things to teach and what to put on that checklist. Daily oral language, keep it simple again. You put 1 or 2 sentences on the board that have some errors. You call on a student. Come on up. Who sees an error? What do we need to correct? You're doing a quick mini lesson as the student is making the connections. Now, make the sentences related to students' lives somehow. Make that connection. Use student names connected to something in reading, science, or social studies. You don't have to use these boring sentences from books. Here's an example. The dog run fast. That's up on the board. They come and they make corrections. Maybe it's on your smart board. Sentence combining. This is research-based, and I have cited my sources there. It not only helps for the teaching of grammar implicitly, but it helps develop syntax. That's a cueing system the brain uses. It recognizes the structure of the language to recognize words as you're reading. You have 2 choppy sentences, and the student must combine them into one sentence and create preserve the meaning. So 2, sometimes 3 short sentences or choppy sentences, and the student has to combine them so that they make sense. And you want to avoid them simply using and or. Sentence combining. You can do a Google search on that if you want. Sentence grammar as sentence elaboration. You take a sentence from a text that they're reading, from class, or from students' lives. And you ask the students to make it more interesting, to make it shorter, to make it longer, to make it spookier, to make it something, to elaborate. This enables them to see the basic structure of the sentence while using prepositions, adjectives, or other things to make it more interesting. And creativity and humor should be encouraged with this. You can learn and be silly at the same time. And here's what I use with students in my class. And again, this is an example of a sentence that's related to students' lives. Grammar is inquiry. Inquiry is where you ask a question and look for data to answer the question. Use it with a text or a trade book. Students do an inquiry search. Example, select a section in the textbook or trade book to get an example of nouns per 50. Nouns per 50, NPF. All right? How many nouns per 50? Compare the NPH of different authors, genres, types, etc. All right, how many nouns per 50? How many verbs per 50? How many animal nouns, human nouns? You can graph the results. Average sentence length. Add words to sentences. Noun report. This is an example of inquiry. How many human, animal, plant nouns, non-living nouns? You get the idea. They ask a question, they go to some text, they look for data, and they simply put a tally point in each category as they see it. Adjectives per 100. This one compared books to newspapers. Gets them examining sentences. All right, those are all the answers, all the things you need to know about grammar instruction.